Okay, perfect. And we are recording. So welcome everyone to Injury Prevention Checklist for Alpine skiing. Everyone's getting excited for winter. My name is Claire Smallwood. I am the executive director and co-founder of SheJumps. Our mission is to get more women and girls into the outdoors, and we do that through a number of different ways. In a normal year, we would host about 150 events in 18 different states. However, with COVID happening, you're looking at the new normal for SheJumps, which is we're just adapting, and we're so excited to be here tonight. Just to kind of give a little preface for anyone who's new to the organization, again, our mission is to get more women and girls outside. We believe really in that powerful transformation in the outdoors, and it's not just about being the coolest, the most hardcore, the most extreme, the fastest. It's just about finding new space to transform and become a different person, or really just to discover the person who you've always meant to be. We obviously love winter. We are a really winter-based organization in our history, but we are trying to expand more into all sorts of outdoor sports year-round. But of course, with the winter season gearing up, this is all about us finding a space to just ask some great questions, learn some wonderful skills, and basically knowledge that will help us to make some better decisions when it comes to making sure you're going to maximize the most of your time outside this winter, and kind of have a new skill set when it comes to when you go into a shop or you're trying to get ready for the ski season, having a bit more information at your fingertips, which leads us to safety. So safety obviously is the most important thing here, and that's what Betsy, our presenter, is going to help us all figure out, which is how do we just stay safe when we're alpine skiing, choosing the best equipment for what our needs are, and to be successful. So again, if you're new to SheJumps, we have tons of other events as well that are geared around this kind of information, such as a winter trail prep series. We have an Alpine development school, which is geared a little bit more towards backcountry skiing, as well as a number of avalanche education events. So if you're interested in learning about those, go to the SheJumps website. We'll also be sharing some links in the follow-up and in the recording. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our host, Betsy, with Bold Prevention Solution. Bold Solutions. Sorry, I'm totally.
Bold Performance Solutions.
Bold
it's okay.
Performance. I said prevention because I was thinking safety.
Because you're in prevention mode, of course.
Because we all are in prevention mode right now, right? Mask up.
Isn't that the truth?
Okay, there we go. Here we are. Betsy Baker-Bold. Please take it.
There I am. Hey, everybody. It's so great to have everybody joining us tonight. I know that in many places around the country, the snow is already flying, and I know in the mountains here, it's already coming down, which is super exciting. And while skiing is going to look a little bit different this year, we're all still excited to get out there and participate and get back out in the mountains and enjoy some fresh air and all that the mountains have to offer, including skiing. And today I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about myself, and I'm going to fill you in a little bit about who I am, and then go into some things that we can do to think about and contemplate before we head out into the mountains so that we're safe. So again, my name is Betsy. I'm a physical therapist. I'm based in Everett, Washington. I've been a physical therapist for over 25 years. And I worked with the U.S. ski team, as you can kind of see from that slide. So I've been a member of the medical pool for the United States ski and snowboard team since 2006. So I've done a bunch of travel with them, and I've worked with some international athletes as well. So from an expertise side of things, as a physical therapist and working with the ski team, I'm also a ski instructor, and I've been a ski instructor for over 30 years as well. So I know the sport pretty well, and while I am somewhat some people would consider an expert, I don't profess to know everything. So what I want to try to do today is give you a little bit of the knowledge that I have, and then also just introduce you to some of the resources that are out there, especially in the Northwest, but also give you some tools or some things to ask about when you go shopping or when you start to consider things in your area if you're not from the Northwest. So today we're going to talk about equipment considerations, ski tuning and how that can affect your safety, fitness, hydration, nutrition, terrain selection, decision making, and other areas for education like taking lessons and that kind of stuff. But it's not just all about what exercises do I need to do to prevent myself from tearing my ACL, for instance, which is kind of the first thing that comes to mind for a lot of people when they're thinking about injury prevention and skiing. So we're going to try to give you an overview, kind of a big picture about all the different things that can play into potentially increasing your injury risk, and then try to just lay out some things that you can do and give you some empowerment through education and information so that you can look out for yourself and even others in your family or some of your friends. So in terms of equipment, we've got some great local resources. I work really closely with Sturdivant's in Bellevue. Evo is a great shop. REI's got some great resources as well. So, and I know in a lot of people where you're at, you've got some great shops. But in terms of thinking about not just where you're going to go, but what you're going to get, we're going to talk about skis to start with. So skis, some of the things to think about when you're thinking about choosing skis is the type of skiing that you're going to do. Are you going to be mostly skiing on groomers, on off-piste, a little bit of both? Are you going to be in backcountry? Because the type of skiing that you're going to want to do is going to dictate the type of skis that you want to get. So it's not just the prettiest skis that are on the rack. And honestly, sometimes when women come into a shop and they don't know, they can get led astray sometimes by some of the people who are working at the shop about, well, what color do you like and what are you looking for? And most of the time they're going to ask you a little bit about your abilities, but you want to make sure that you're leading down the right path to get the right skis for you. So when we talk about skis, we also want to think about your skill levels as well. Are you using your edges? Are you comfortable using your edges? Do you like to have a flatter ski so that you can kind of slip your skis, or do you want to be able to be on the edge and carving? Do you want a ski that floats, that's in the powder? Do you want a ski that kind of does it all? So before we kind of get into that, we kind of need to understand then what type of skis they're out there and what are the components or the anatomy, so to speak, of a ski. So I'm going to get a ski here, and we've got a slide that kind of shows you a little bit there of the ski itself too. So obviously the front of the ski is called the tip, or it's also considered the shovel. So that would be the part that's right up in this area. The waist is the midsection of the ski where your foot is and where your bindings are mounted. And of course the tail down in the end, okay? So the reason why it's important to know those things is because the shape of a ski is going to have different measurements in each one of those areas. And that's going to give you the type of turn that ski is going to want to make. And it's also going to show you, when you look at the ski the other way, you can see at how much bend there is in the ski. So we're looking at how much rocker there is, so how much the ski turns up on the front end and also on the tail end, and how much the middle of the ski tends to sit up and off of the snow. So we've got some slides kind of showing you some pictures of those as well. So we're really looking at what is the footprint and the measurements on the side of the ski so that we know how much of an angle or a turn it's going to make. So the side cut radius here is going to be along the side here. That the width at the tip, the waist, and then all the way down at the tail is going to create kind of a curve, a shape of that ski. And when that ski is tipped up on that edge, that's the radius or the size of the turn that the ski is going to make. And that's important when you're talking about the type of ski that you want to do. I have several skis over here that are a variety of different widths. You've got a big fat powder ski, you've got a narrower ski for slaloms or shorter turns, and then a ski that kind of does it all, which is preferable for what I do. So you want to be able to go into a shop and talk to them about that, because if you're going to be trying to, let's say you're more of an intermediate skier and you're going to be mostly on the groomed run, you want to be able to make sure that you have a ski that's going to be easy for you to tip on edge and also turn. And sometimes having those big wide skis that have a lot of rocker on both sides and kind of flap around can be a little bit challenging sometimes to control. And if they're too wide underfoot, they can actually add a little bit more leverage on your knee and on your ankle. So sometimes a more beginner level skier can use a ski that's a little bit narrower underfoot with a little bit more shape, tip and tail, because that's going to allow them to turn the ski a little bit better. And it's not going to require them to have to move quite as far for them to be able to get up on edge. So if you like to pivot a ski, sometimes having a ski that's got double rocker to be able to float through kind of off-piste snow or heavy powder, sometimes those skis allow you to do that. But then once you get off of that run and you come down on a hard groomer, which is the reality in the Northwest, oftentimes we've got little chutes of fun off-piste snow, but then you have to get on the groomer to get down to the bottom of the run. Sometimes those skis that are kind of floppy and have more rocker on both ends aren't very fun to ski when you get onto the groomed runs. So you kind of have to think about the area that you're skiing and the terrain that you want to be able to ski in. Okay, so my go-to ski in particular is this one right over here. This is a Head Monster. It, at the waist, is 88 underfoot. If you ask me, the sweet spot of most skis, especially skiing in the Northwest, is a ski that's anywhere at the waist between 85 and 90 millimeters underfoot. It's a great ski that can float, especially if it's got a fairly big shovel or a tip. So it can go off-piste, you can ski in powder with that, but then once you get back on the groomer, it's a great groom ski as well. So if you're a person who likes to kind of do all of it, being able to have a ski within that range of width underfoot helps you be able to manage all the different terrain out there. There's a lot of people who seem to get talked into getting these big fat skis because they want to be able to have a ski that can ski in the powder. But the problem with that is that when you have 108 millimeters underfoot, then you end up having a little bit of a harder time getting that ski up on an edge to carve a turn sometimes when you're on the groomers. And it can add a lot more leverage underneath your foot to your ankle and to your knee, which if you can't handle something like that, then that can increase your risk of injury. So when you're talking about skis and ski width, you want to be able to know the anatomy of the ski so that when you go into a shop, you can talk to them about the type of turns that you like to make and the type of terrain that you want to ski so that you can find something that's going to be fun, enjoyable, as well as something that you can handle. Also, the thing about skis is that some of them can be stiffer, right? So they're a little bit harder to bend or get that camber or the ski to kind of flatten out on the snow when you press down on it. So if you're a lighter weight woman, then sometimes you don't want to be skiing on a really stiff ski because that's going to actually put a lot more energy back into you. It's going to be harder to handle. So that can also increase your risk. So we want to be able to make sure that you're safe and fun out there with the types of skis that you choose, okay? If you have any questions as I'm going through any of this, for sure, go ahead and type it into the chat and we can get some of those questions to me if you want, and then we'll also have some time at the end to go through some questions as well. So, so you can see on that, the camber of the ski is basically showing you how much the ski can deform and flatten out to be able to get on edge. And that rocker is that tip and tail the rise in the front and the rise in the back. So that makes ski a little bit more floaty. It makes it a little bit more easier to turn. It's at least one that you can pivot a little bit easier. So, but yeah, we're good, Claire. I think we're good. Okay, so then moving on to boots. Boots, choosing boots. I think boots are your most important piece of equipment. Okay, how you connect your foot to the snow and to the ski is super important. It's not just about, does it have a fluffy liner that's going to supposedly keep your feet warm, because the reality is how your boot fits your foot is going to have a big impact on whether or not your feet stay warm. And nobody wants to have cold feet that are uncomfortable when they're trying to ski. So when you're thinking about boots, number one, when you go into a shop, consider the fact that when you're in a shop, your inside is probably about 70 degrees. The plastic's going to be a little bit warmer. It's going to be a little bit easier to bend. And then when you go to take that boot and put it on out in the snow, it's going to stiffen up a little bit. So if a boot in the shop, when you put on, feels a little stiff and hard, it might be a little bit too stiff for you when you get out on the snow. So just something to consider. You want to really make sure that you're getting a well-fitting boot. So the first thing, anytime that you go to try on boots, you want to make sure that you're getting what's called a shell fit, okay? And I'm going to try to take this boot out of its liner here. So what you want to be able to do is take the boot and take the inside of it out when you go to try it on, and you're going to put your foot actually inside the shell without the liner in it. So here's the liner, I'm taking it out, okay? So there's the nice soft squishy part. You're going to actually put your foot inside the liner, okay? Sock on, and you're going to take your toe and you're going to move it all the way so that it barely touches the tip of the boot. What you're trying to do here is get a fit for how well the shell of the boot fits on your foot. So not just length of your foot, but also width of your foot, and if there's any spots that are going to give you some troubles. So sometimes if you put your foot inside the shell, you scoot your toe all the way to the front, you might feel that you've already got some areas that rub on your foot. That doesn't mean it's not the right boot for you, but it can mean that you might need to be able to have might need to have somebody actually custom fit the boot for you. If the width feels pretty good, and if the distance behind your heel to the back of the plastic of the boot is maybe 2 fingers width or less, okay? You don't want to have more than 2 fingers behind the back of your heel and the plastic of the boot. Otherwise, that boot's too big for you, okay? One of the things that happens is the liner that's inside the boot, the more that you ski, it packs out. Okay, it squishes over time. This is another reason why it's oftentimes good to replace your boots after a couple years if you're skiing a lot, because then you start to slop around if that liner starts to squish around, okay? So you wanna be able to make sure that you're finding the right fitting boot in terms of fitting your foot, the shape of your foot, the length of your foot. And then you also, when you go to put your foot in here and your lower leg, you want to make sure that when you're standing there in that boot and you bend your ankle and your lower leg goes forward, that you're not running into either side of that cuff. And if you are, then you want to make sure that the guys at the shop or your local boot fitter, I've got several names of good people who are good, can help you get the alignment of this upper part of the boot so that it helps your knee track appropriately when you're trying to bend and straighten your leg when you're skiing. If you're going to flex your ankles and flex your knees, however many times a day you are when you're skiing, but it's tracking you so that you can't control the edge or the tipping of the boot very well to control your ski, that is not going to be a good thing when it comes to injury prevention, okay? This is going to be one of the big areas that can set your knee up for problems, okay? The other thing too is that if you're balancing in your boot, put that liner back on, put your foot inside there. If you stand up and you buckle up the boots and you're standing in the boot and you feel like you're leaning way far forward in your boot and the muscles on the top of your thigh are already contracting really hard, you're gonna know that your quadriceps are already working way too hard when you're standing in your boot. There are some modifications that you can make to that to stand the boot up a little bit more and get you more centered in your stance so that when you put your foot and you go onto your skis, you've got a lot more balance and stance just at rest. That's going to set you up for success, because then that way you're going to be able to tip your ski and turn your ski a lot easier. A lot of women's boots are set up in a way to try to help you get forward in your stance. So the top of the boot might be set at more of an angle. The bottom of the boot might also have a little bit of an angle on it so that it's trying to help you get forward. The problem is sometimes that puts you too far forward. And then the way that you compensate is you bring your hips back. So if your center of mass, your hips are sitting back here when you're trying to stand in your boots, that's also going to put the rest of your body at risk, especially your knee. It's also going to make it harder for you to be able to balance on your skis. So finding a boot that fits your foot, is aligned on your lower leg, and also has the right amount of flexibility in it. So we talk about things like stiffness indexes or flex indexes of boots. If you go to bend the boot, again in that warm shop, and it's really hard to bend or deform the plastic, and you try to get out on snow and you're trying to bend your ankles and your knees as you need to when you're efficiently skiing, if you can't bend that boot, then you're not going to be able to flex and extend and manage the snow and manage the terrain underneath you that you're skiing on. So it's going to make it harder for you to ski. You're going to be using way more muscles than you need to be using. So it's not going to be very efficient. And it's going to put you at risk of injury because your weight is going to be too far back, which is also a potential for injuring not just your knee, but also your Achilles and anything else if you're falling over, okay? So making sure that you get a good fitting boot, and don't just go for the ones that has a nice fluffy liner inside it and this women's specific. To be honest, I'm not a petite person, but I don't ever ski in a women's boot because I like to be able to modify a boot, which I find sometimes the racing boots and the men's boots are a little bit more modifiable. For me, when I get a pair of boots, I never put them on straight out of the box. I always take the boots, go to my favorite boot fitter, who happens to be gym mates in Seattle at Custom Boot Service, and he goes through a thorough setup for me. He looks at my balance, he looks at my stance, he looks at everything so that I can stand efficiently in my boot. He also makes for me a footbed so that the bottom part of my foot is supported underneath the footbed of the boot. Okay, so a lot of times the footbeds that are inside here are not very good and not very supportive. But when you put an actual custom footbed inside, it helps you balance as well. So I don't ever take a boot and wear it straight out of the box onto snow. So it might be something to consider as well, so that you have something that fits your foot and is comfortable for you. Okay, so footbeds, boot flex, boot fit. The other thing that most boots that you're going to find now, they all have this strap up on the top. Okay. So this one is called booster. So the booster straps are actually really stiff elastic. For me, I am always putting, in fact, I'm going to show you on this other boot over here. I'm always putting my booster straps on the inside. So they're not just for carrying your boots, ladies. They actually do have a function. These booster straps help allow you to keep your lower leg and your shell of your boot, as well as the liner of your boot, tight around your lower leg. So when you put your lower leg in there, you don't want to have space around your lower leg between the front, the tongue of the boot, and the back of the boot. If you can move your leg inside the boot without the boot bending, then that's going to be a problem, okay? Because then every time you try to move your body, that force isn't getting transmitted into your ski. So we want to be able to make sure that as you flex and extend your leg, that it's transmitting directly into the boot and directly down into your ski. I, in particular, take my booster strap, and instead of tightening up around the plastic of the boot, I actually take it and put it between the liner and the plastic so that I can keep that nice and snug around my lower leg, okay? I can't tell you how many times I have taken people that I've been teaching and changed that for them and told them to unstrap their booster strap, put it in front of the liner, inside the plastic, cinch that up around the leg, and then buckle the boots on top of that, and how much it has helped improve their balance and their stance on their skis. So that's just another thing to consider. Again, so that you are efficiently transmitting the forces from your body right into your skis. All right, so
hey,
boots
Betsy,
are super important. Yeah.
We have a good question.
Sure.
Do you have advice on how to select a stiffness for a boot?
Yeah. So the stiffness of the boot is going to depend upon the type of skier you are, how big you are, how heavy you are. So for instance, the boots that I ski in, okay, are what are called a 120 flex. So oftentimes boots are going from an 80 flex to up to about, in the racing boots, a 150 flex. So that's kind of the general range that they run in. So if you're a really tall, heavy person that has a lot of leverage over your boot, you're going to potentially need a stiffer boot to deal with. If you're a smaller, petite woman with shorter legs, you may not want to have a higher stiffness boot. So it's sometimes in that, 100 flex range. Oftentimes junior boots are right around kind of in the 80, 90 range. But the higher the number, the stiffer the boot gets. So if you are a beginner skier or a intermediate skier, and you're mostly skiing on, groomed runs, but you're not really aggressive and you're not really heavy, then you're probably going to be in that 100 range, I would guess, for a boot flex. But again, you want to make sure when you're in the shop and you're trying to bend the boot, you get your foot in there, you put on your liner, you cinch all the buckles right up. And you want to make sure that when you go to bend that boot, you can bend it pretty well in the shop, but not so much that when you bend it, it completely squishes and the buckles on the top part of the boot are banging into the buckles of the bottom part of the boot. Like if you're really bending it too far, even though it's a warm environment, it's probably going to be too soft for you. So you want to be able to deform and bend the boot a little bit, knowing that when you get out on the snow, it's going to stiffen up a little bit in colder temperatures. I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
How often do you replace your boots versus just replacing your liners?
That's a really good question, actually. I would say boots, how often should I replace boots versus liners? You know, liners for sure, if they start to pack out and look pretty nasty or smell pretty nasty, you can get replacement liners. You can get custom molded ones too that are they heat up and then they kind of custom to your leg and your foot. But usually I would say that the average, if you're skiing a lot every season, like let's say you're skiing 50 days a season, you're probably going to be getting a pair of new boots maybe every 2 years, 2 to 3 years. If you're a recreational skier who's skiing like one day on the weekend, and it's probably maybe 15 days or so every season, you probably got about 4 or 5 years maybe in a pair of boots. So on average, people say around 90 to 110 days or so inside your boots, so 100 days or so. But if the plastic still looks like it's in good shape and the boot can still fit you pretty well and it's still performing well for you, you can replace the liners. But you want to make sure that all of the rivets and all of that stuff is safe. Your buckles are safe, that everything is still, you know, cinching up pretty well around your foot. So you don't want to be out there in a boot that is breaking down, basically. And if the liner itself breaks down and your foot starts to slop around inside, for sure that's not safe. Because again, when you move, you're not transmitting that force directly into your ski. Okay? We good on those questions, Steph? Okay.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to move on to bindings. So bindings aren't just there to hold your feet on the ski, okay? Bindings are there for two things: to retain your foot on the ski, but to release your foot off the ski, okay? So they want to hold you on, but they want to let you go. So retention and release. The thing that's super, super important to think about that is the DIN setting that they set your bindings at, which is how much it holds you in and when it releases. That DIN setting is based on your weight and your ability. So anytime that you're getting your skis mounted with new bindings or tuned or any worked on at all, you want to make sure that you do not lie about your weight and your ability, okay? Guilty as charged. Sometimes we don't always like to admit our weight, especially as women. But it's a really, really important thing to not lie about when you take your skis in. Because if you are saying that you weigh a lot less, then they're not going to set the DIN setting of your bindings tight enough. And then you can pre-release out of your bindings. So or if you say that you're a more aggressive skier than you actually are, they can tighten that binding down too tight, and then they don't release when they need to. Okay, so that is super important about your bindings. The other thing about bindings is when you're choosing bindings these days, they don't always come with ski brakes. And know that your ski brakes, the size of ski brakes that you need to order is going to be based on the width of the ski, right? It's because they have to go around the edges of the ski. So if the width of the waist of the ski is 85 millimeters, you need to make sure that you have a binding brake, ski brake that's at least 85 millimeters wide to go around the width of the ski. So that's just something to consider if you're buying new gear, okay? So make sure that you're not lying about your weight or your ability when you're getting your skis tuned, so that those bindings can not only hold you on the ski, but release when they need to release, because that is one of the bigger things in terms of injuries. If you do a slow twisting fall and your foot doesn't come out of that binding, that is not going to be good, okay? Too much leverage on your leg. All right, so moving on. There's other equipment that is important to think about, okay? So helmets. Most people these days are wearing helmets, which is great. The thing to know about helmets is that they need to fit correctly and they don't prevent you from getting a concussion, okay? So helmets will prevent you getting a skull fracture, or at least reduce your chances of getting a skull fracture, but they're not gonna help stop a concussion, okay? Because they can't control your brain inside your skull. But a well-fitting helmet, then again, kind of like your boots, they can transmit the forces and prevent a lot of slopping around. And if you have a helmet that's too loose, then it's not really going to do you a whole lot of good if you fall and hit your head on something. So helmets are super important. The other thing that at times people don't think about a lot are goggles. Your vision is so crucial. And if you have a pair of goggles that doesn't have, say, replaceable lenses, or is only one type of lens, one color of lens, and let's say you're going out and you're skiing at night and you don't have a pair, I had a pair of clear goggles here somewhere, but you need to have a lighter lens for skiing in dark conditions or night skiing. Okay, if it's super sunny out, obviously you want to have a darker lens that you can use, but you want to be able to make sure that you have some choices in terms of lenses, all right? So clear lenses, photochromatic lenses. A lot of the lenses now out there too can change, kind of like the transition lenses in your glasses. And so they can get darker when it gets lighter outside, and they can lighten up a little bit as it kind of gets darker in the day. But you want to be able to have a lens that can give you contrast between snow and flat light conditions and things like that. So make sure that you can see well and that you don't just have one set of goggles. Right now you're probably thinking, my God, this sport is so expensive. But those are all things to consider when you're thinking about being smart about the equipment that you have and being safe. The other things, you want to think about making sure that you have enough underlayers, making sure that you are not wearing cotton. So make sure that you're preventing not just musculoskeletal injuries to your joints or to your muscles, but that you're preventing frostbite and all that kind of stuff. I have to say, one of my favorite pieces of equipment that I have are my boot heaters. So they help me prevent frostbite in my toes on the cold days. I have a pair of boot heaters in my boots, and I have had them for years, and I don't think I could live without them. So heaters are great. And they actually have heated gloves now too, which is crazy. Maybe for Christmas. All right. Another thing to consider is tuning your skis. So ladies, I'm guessing that there's a few of you in this group who don't get your skis tuned regularly, okay? A lot of people don't talk about the importance of a ski tune when it comes to preventing injury. But how many of you out there have put on your pair of skis to go skiing and you didn't slide? Or they didn't slide very well, or you got snow kind of building up on the bottom of your skis. Or you started skiing around and you were skiing and your skis started kind of catching, or they felt a little squirrely, or you couldn't really control them very well. Oftentimes that's the result of a poor ski tune, okay? So when we're talking about ski tuning, we're not just talking about waxing, but we're talking about the flatness of the base and the edges, the angles that the edges are at, okay? When you look at the base of your ski, it really needs to be flat. And one of the things that can happen, you can see on that slide there, is if the base is too high or the base is too low compared to the edges, then you can have a totally different performing ski. If those edges are catching too much, then that ski is going to get pulled side to side when you're trying to control it around an arc. If the base is too high, then sometimes it's super squirrely and you can't get an edge at all and you're not feeling very balanced. So sometimes at the beginning of the season, especially if you've had a pair of skis for a while, you want to take them into a shop and do what's called a base grind. Have them do a base grind and try to get that back to that zero angle to start with. And then you can adjust the angles that your edges are set at or sharpened down to help allow you to go onto an edge gently when you make a turn, and so they're not super sharp and catching. Okay, so that is a whole nother topic in terms of edges, angles that you want your edges set at. But you don't necessarily, most recreational skiers won't ski on a flat 0 degree to 0 degree. There's always going to be a little bit of an edge to the edge, or a little bit of an angle to the edge to help you feather it up onto the edge so that you can ski it. Okay. Now, sometimes when you're out skiing, you'll be skiing and you'll go to put your ski up on an edge and you'll feel like the tip is kind of catching really quickly. One of the things that I'll do if my skis get overtuned is I'll actually take the side of my ski pole and kind of rub it down my ski, or I carry a little tool with myself to kind of dull the edge a little bit so that it's not so catchy, okay? But you can imagine that if you're out there skiing and your ski doesn't have a very good tune on it, and let's say you don't have the right wax for it, then you end up catching or it catches you and you're not moving, or you're moving and your ski isn't moving, then that's a potential injury risk as well. And did you know that when you choose wax, you need to have different types of waxes and different colors of wax for different snow conditions and temperatures? So sometimes people will carry little wax things in their pocket or in their pack to kind of scrape down their ski in case it does kind of stick. But the temperature that's outside, or the temperature of the snow, will dictate the color of wax that you need to have on your ski. So oftentimes, and even those waxes that have different colors, you have to actually heat them up with a different temperature of an iron to do a hot wax on the ski. So there's a lot of people out there who really love to get into the science of this and learn how to tune their own skis. And there's tuning clinics all the time. Ski shops will put on tuning clinics. A lot of organizations can put on tuning clinics with an expert. REI does tuning clinics. And I think you can even see, I'm sure there's plenty of them on YouTube that are out there to help you learn. But when you start to go down the road of actually tuning your own skis, that's going to be something that's going to be a little bit expensive too, because then you're talking different iron for, an iron that gets the right temperature and all the other stuff, the waxes. I saw a question pop up about like how the all-weather waxes work. They're usually made of a little bit of a different material. Sometimes you can get the things in the little canisters and you can smooth them on the bottom of your skis so you get really slippery. They usually have material inside them that allows you to be super slippery, but they don't really last for a long time. So it has to do with the types of chemical compound that's in there. And really what's happening is the wax is trying to create a little barrier of water, a bead of water between your ski and the snow so that you're sliding and slipping along the length of the ski easier. So my suggestion is get to know your shop guys in your local area. If you're taking them in and you're getting yourself a ski tune, get to know who they are, get to know their names, have them walk you through what they're doing to the ski and how they do it. And that when you can make good friends with a good shop guy who can treat your skis well, that's a good relationship to have. You want to be able to make sure too, that when you start the season out, that your skis get a good tune to set you up for success to get going. But midway through the season, you want to make sure that you're making adjustments and you're checking your edges. For those of us who ski in the Northwest know that not all of our runs are perfect all the time. And we get little rocks and we get little branches. And if we're skiing in the trees, we hit things. So you want to make sure that the edges of your skis are nice and smooth. If you take your finger down the edge of your ski and you feel kind of like if you have a little burr in your fingernail, and you kind of catch on your clothes and stuff like that. If you have that in your ski, it's going to catch on the snow too. Okay. So you want to be able to run your finger down the side of your edge and on the base of your edge and make sure that it's nice and smooth. And you want to look at the bottom of your ski and make sure you don't have any big gouges or divots in the bottom of your ski. And if you do, you want to be able to have them get that filled in so that it's a nice, smooth running surface, not just on the flats, but also on the side, on the edge of the ski. Okay. So ski tuning is super important so that you're not catching an edge and taking an unintended fall. All right. Post-season too, when you're tuning your skis, you want to make sure that at the end of your season that you're really putting a couple layers of wax on your skis and then just letting them sit so that they're nice and conditioned in the off season when you're not on them, and making sure that you're wiping down your edges and that there's no rust and all that kind of stuff when you put them away for the summer. Okay. So equipment, ski tuning, boots, everything, all that stuff is super important. But of course, the one thing that everybody's always concerned about is fitness. Okay. Now, this is some difficult times right now. Most all of us aren't able to go to a gym. Or if you can, maybe you don't feel comfortable going to it because of COVID. And so my concern is that we've got a lot of people who are going to be going right into the ski season this year, and they haven't done their normal preseason fitness and training. And so they may be going out there, and if the forecasters are right, we might have a really snowy winter this year. And if you're going right out there gangbusters, so excited to finally get out of the house and do something fun, but you haven't really prepared, then that's not going to set you up for success. Okay. There are a lot of really great resources out there to be able to help you do some online fitness. And we're going to send some links to people to you all with some people locally who have some programs of people that I know and trust. For instance, we've got the Alpine training project that's based out of Kirkland, Washington. There are a bunch of physical therapists who are big skiers, and they have an online program set up. We have Peak Fitness Northwest that's based out of Hood River, Oregon. She's a high-level ski instructor and a personal trainer, so she's got some great ski fitness preseason training programs. And then also Scott McCartney with Rampfly. He's a former U.S. ski team athlete, and he's got a great program set up too. And so all three of those people have set up discount codes for people who are participating in this webinar, so that you can log on and participate in their preseason ski training program at a discount. So you'll get all that information again. But we want to make sure that not only is all your equipment and everything set up, but that your body is ready and set up for success too. So as women, we have some specific challenges, right? We have wider hips than guys do. So that puts our knees in particular at risk in all sports, but especially in skiing. So you can imagine that if you've got a boot that doesn't fit well, or if you've got a ski that's not tuned very well, and then you have hips that you haven't really strengthened very well, or a core that you haven't gotten in good control and strong, then you're not going to be able to manage all the forces, even if you've got a bad ski tune, because your body's not going to be able to handle it. So we want to make sure that you're setting yourself up with a fitness routine that addresses not just squats, not just wall sits, not just straight plane squats, lunges, all that kind of stuff, but you need to be able to do things that are moving you side to side so that your hip muscles side to side get strong, and a lot of rotational movement as well, because you're steering your skis underneath your body, and it's rotation of the femur that can sometimes cause problems for the knee. So all of those things need to be included in the ski prep program. And they're not always included in just kind of general fitness programs, because I know as a physical therapist, and I talk to my patients who come in and they're like, but I did all these squats and I did all these lunges and I'm doing all these planks. But everything is in this straightforward plane, and there's nothing side to side, and there's nothing rotation involved in that. And especially in skiing, there's nothing that's working on eccentric control. So eccentric control is that decelerating of your muscles when your muscles are actually turning on, but they're getting longer at the same time. And a good ski fitness program is going to include some eccentric training, like jumping off of boxes or going down slow in squats and some explosive movements coming up. So all three of those resources that we talked about are going to be really great ones for building in all of those things that are specific to skiing. So we want to make sure that we're protecting our knees. We also want to make sure that we're protecting our Achilles tendons, our hips, our shoulders, all that kind of stuff, in a big full body program that's going to work on fitness, hip strength, balance, endurance, explosiveness, like jumping, and good recovery things, stretching, flexibility, all that kind of stuff. So all of those things will create a really well-rounded program. And when we were talking about me coming on and doing this program, at first everybody thinks, oh, injury prevention, we're going to be going through a set of exercises. And what I wanted to do more is get you connected to resources of people who can do a really thorough job with that, and for me to be able to highlight the things to look for, and not just talk about a set of 5 exercises that I think are the best ones to do. Because there's so much more to injury prevention than just, do some squats and do some lunges and do some planks. Okay. So women, the other thing we got to think about too is that our hormones can play a role in the flexibility of our tissues and our connective tissues. And so again, even more important for us to be able to make sure that we are setting ourselves up, getting our tissues strong, being able to have solid endurance, solid strength to get us through this time. Okay. So nutrition and hydration. You can see on this slide, it says, how dehydrated are you? A quick way to test how well you're hydrated is check the color of your urine. So a dietitian that I worked with one time said that when you wake up in the morning, the first time that you go to the bathroom, your pee better look like Bud Light. If it doesn't look like Bud Light, you're probably a little bit dehydrated. Okay, so you want to have that light color. But how many of us, when we're getting up early in the morning and we're driving up to the mountain, are having a cup of coffee or a big mug of tea or something like that on our way up to the mountain? I would venture to guess that most people who are listening, okay, that's already setting us up in a deficit, okay? I would say maybe a better suggestion would be a thing of emergency. It's got some electrolytes, it's got some B vitamins for a little energy to pep you up and wake you up, but you're also hydrating yourself, okay? We don't want to start off in a deficit with hydration, because just being outside in the mountains, just breathing in the alpine environment can dehydrate you. Then when you add to that you are performing high level of activity, you're skiing a lot, maybe you're blasting off in the trees, you've got some heavy cruddy snow. If you're doing all of that in a day and you're not hydrating when you're skiing, you're losing a ton of water, and there is no way that drinking water at lunch is enough to rehydrate you. And the effects of dehydration are muscle cramping, confusion, poor body temperature regulation, slower reaction time. And in fact, they did a study one time of a group of skiers, and they took the skiers and they said, okay, well matched, equal abilities. This group over here is going to drink a 2-ounce Dixie cup of water on every chairlift. And then they tested their hydration levels, and they tested their perceived hydration levels, how thirsty they were, whether or not they felt dehydrated. And the other group could have as much water as they wanted whenever they felt thirsty. And they found the group that drank 2 ounces of water on every chair ride reported significantly less fatigue, significant less testing in terms of hydration. They weren't dehydrated. They were able to take more runs. They felt stronger. And the people who drank water whenever they got thirsty, or whenever they wanted water, had significantly higher rates of dehydration, significantly higher self-perceived of fatigue. So we know that if you drink a little bit every chair ride you're on, you're going to be rehydrating your tissues. If you drink a little bit throughout the day, and you even also drink some things with carbohydrates and proteins, you'll also show, some studies were done to show that you have less muscle damage at the end of the day. So, or even if you're doing that at lunch, if you're having something with a little bit of electrolytes at lunch, and carbohydrates and protein like an Accelerate or something like that. So we want to be able to make sure that we're keeping our tissues hydrated. And the best thing that I invested in for me to stay that is called a platypus. So I'm not a rep for the company, but I don't like having a big pack on my back. And camel packs are great, and a lot of people can ski with them and they feel comfortable. I personally don't like them, but I can take a platypus and fill it up with water. And as I'm drinking it, it flattens out and it just fits inside my inside pocket. And it's one of the things that I can do every chair ride, whether I'm thirsty or not. I just take a little bit of drinks. And I notice for myself, my feet don't cramp. I used to say, oh my gosh, I'm so out of shape, I didn't prepare enough for the season. And one of the things I realized is it had very little to do with my fitness. It's the fact that I was getting dehydrated. So hydration is super, super key. Make sure that you make that part of your season this year, okay? Take something with you and keep yourself drinking. The other thing to think about with hydration is it has to be absorbed into your tissues. So a lot of people think, oh, I get up out of bed and the first thing I do is I chug a big thing of water. It's probably going right through you, okay? If you're drinking a little bit through the day, especially in the mountain environment, you're probably not going to pee a whole lot more because your body is actually utilizing it. But if you drink a bunch of water on an empty stomach, it's probably not going to get absorbed into your tissues. So it needs some minerals, some electrolytes. So drinking with food in the morning is a better way to get that water to get absorbed into your system and into your cells, okay? Hydration is super important. Obviously, nutrition. Have some breakfast before you ski in the morning. Make sure that you're eating healthy through the day. Pay attention to how much energy you're expending. And if you're going to be out skiing with your friends in the trees, make sure that you take some snacks with you, because you don't want to let your blood sugar drop, and you want to make sure that you have enough available resources for your body to activate and utilize your muscles, okay? So nutrition, hydration, super important. All right. I bombarded you with a lot of information so far. We're getting close to the end, and then we'll be able to take some questions. But one of the other things that I want to talk about for safety is terrain selection and decision making, okay? So it breaks my heart every time a patient walks in to me to see me for physical therapy, and they say, well, I went skiing with my friends, and it was my first time, or I hadn't skied very many, and they told me that we were going on this run, and I went with them, and I got injured. So being pressured into going to areas that you know that your ability is not ready, ready for, that's something to be a little bit wary of. And also going into the backcountry when you're not prepared. So terrain selection and decision making is one of the things, just, taking a pause, making good decisions about where you're going, knowing your limits, and knowing about snow conditions is super important. Okay. So we all know trail map signage, right? Green circle, blue square, black diamond, double black diamond. Most of us know what all of those mean. And we can usually put our ability levels somewhere in there. But a lot of times things that are off-piste or little chutes that we've never been in, they're not marked. And so you want to be able to make sure that you have the skill set to be able to manage it, and that you're not being taken into an area that maybe you're not quite ready for. Pay attention also to grooming reports on skis, on ski resort reports. And the other thing to know too is pay attention to weather. Get to know the NOAA websites, the NWAC websites, the Northwest Avalanche Center websites, and pay attention to the directions that your mountain faces. Because, for instance, north-facing slopes are going to be colder, drier snow most often. South-facing slopes are going to get a little bit more weather. They're going to go more through that melt and freeze cycle, so it might be a little bit more chunky underneath. And if you know kind of what the weather pattern has been doing, and okay, you know what, the snow over on that side of this run that's been in the sun all day might be a little bit more mucky than the snow over here on this side of the run that's been in the shade and might stay a little bit drier. So knowing, kind of paying attention to your surroundings, and also maybe pay attention to the wind. If you've had a little bit of fresh snow and the wind is coming from one direction and carrying snow and dumping it on the other side of this ridge over here that you can ski on, that snow might be better skiable than the snow over here that's just been scoured off because of the wind. So paying attention to what the snow conditions are like and what the weather conditions are like can help lead you down the path to not only preventing injury, but also a lot more fun on the slope that day. Okay, so NOAA, pay attention to the weather systems. NWAC, pay attention to the avalanche controls. Know, especially if you're a backcountry skier, know the ROSE map that NWAC puts out. Know where there's high and considerable avalanche danger. And if you're a person who's going to be exploring the backcountry or the side country this season because there's going to be a little bit more regulation, so to speak, in the resort areas this year because of COVID, you want to make sure that you are well prepared for that. I have a fear that we're going to have a lot of people out there skiing in the backcountry that are not going to be safe and well prepared for what's out there in the event of trying to avoid crowds. So those things are really important to pay attention to and know before you go, know about the avalanche dangers and things like that. All right, so moving along to the last little bit, we want to be able to make sure that you have resources to help educate yourself. SheJumps has a bunch of programs that are out there to help you understand and get more confident outside in the mountain environment. The other thing I really want to put a plug on as a professional ski instructor is taking a lesson, okay, or 2 or 3 or 5 or a season's worth. This year in particular, I think that for most of the resort areas, if you're signed up for a lesson, you're going to have priority to be able to get onto the mountain on those days. So I know that some of the mountains these days are going to like a reservation system. So if you and a group of your best girlfriends have gotten together and said, hey, we're going to take a group and we're going to sign up for a semi-private lesson, split the cost. Sometimes you get lift cutting privileges on a good snow day, but that's pretty fun. But you have a professional who's going to actually show you how to utilize your skills better to be more efficient out in the snow. Okay, so you're going to learn how to turn your skis better, tip your skis better, move your body more efficiently, stay in balance. They'll teach you tactics of how to manage different snow conditions and moguls and that kind of stuff. They'll show you the mountain even better as well. So don't underestimate the power of a good ski lesson and the fun that you can have also taking a lesson together with a group of people that you know. So go with the pro, find a good ski instructor at your area. Pay attention to SheJumps programs. If you are going to go in the backcountry this year, it's a requirement in my eyes that you take an AVI course. If you take an avalanche awareness course, And I know that SheJumps is sponsoring those, and there's several online avalanche awareness courses this season as well. Okay, so you've been bombarded with a lot of information. We're almost at the end of an hour. I want to make sure that I have time for questions and that we can answer some of the things that came up.
Okay, so
Steph, you're on.
there's a couple questions that I've got.
Okay.
What is the right amount of camber for a 140-pound advanced skier?
Ooh, interesting question. The right amount of camber, enough that you can bend it. So if you're 140 pounds and you can take that ski and put your boots on it and stand on the ski and you can bend it, you're pretty good. If you get out on the snow and you can bend that ski, there isn't really a right amount of camber because skis are all made a little bit differently. They all have different stiffnesses. So the camber that's in the ski, where the center of the ski is up higher than the tip and tail, is really there so that when you're standing on it, it flattens out so that the ski can tip together. You've got skis that are out there that are kind of like double rockers where there's like reverse camber. There's no camber in it, so you don't actually have to flatten it out. It's the mountain that brings that ski. It's the snow that brings that ski into contour, basically, with the mountain. So then it just kind of turns itself, so to speak. So there isn't really a right amount of camber except for making sure that it's not too stiff for you. If you're 140 pounds and you're trying to ski on an aggressive racing ski that's really stiff and hard to bend, I would say that that would be a little bit too much. It's going to be too stiff and you're going to have a hard time controlling it. So it's a difficult question to answer in just one quick little snippet.
Okay, what about the weight of the skis for hiking into the backcountry?
Oh, it's interesting. The weight of skis for hiking in the backcountry. So are you going to actually be carrying them on your back, or are you going to actually be skinning up on them? Because of course, if you're carrying them, for sure, you're going to want to be comfortable with them. But the problem is, or not the problem is, but it's not usually the weight of the skis that's the issue. It's the weight of the skis in combination with the bindings. Most of the time when I hold on to two different skis, it's kind of like bicycle racing. People can measure it in grams. They'll look at it and they'll be like, oh, this feels a little heavier than this, but it's pretty negligible. But a lot of times it's the binding setup and it makes it really heavy. So I don't have a general guideline on the weight of it, but it is something to consider when you're going up, when you're AT skiing, because of course you're going to be bringing those skis with you when you're going up the hill, but are also carrying them on a pack. Sometimes what people do, instead of carrying them on their shoulders, if they can strap them into a pack so that they're carrying the load a little bit safer across the whole back, that's one of the options that people use to be able to kind of help distribute the load a little bit when you're carrying them in the backcountry. Anything else, Steph?
Okay. Yep. How can we approach situations where more advanced skiers are saying things like, you'll be fine? The pressure gets pretty thick sometimes.
Yeah, it does get really thick sometimes. My best answer for that is to go with your gut. I think that there is a sweet spot between expanding your horizons and going out in areas and trying new things, and going and being pressured into going places that you don't feel comfortable with. I think that we should not underestimate our intuition and our gut. And I don't think that you can ever go wrong by trusting your gut. And if it's something that you don't feel comfortable about, I would say empower yourself to be able to stand up for yourself and be authentic and say, you know what, I'm not feeling it, you guys. I do the same thing when I ski and when I kiteboard. And if we're going out and for whatever reason, there's something inside of me that's like, I'm not feeling it. That's usually what I tell my friends. Just not feeling it for whatever reason. I don't feel I have to go somewhere, because the last thing I want to do is go and do that if I already, my gut's been telling me no. Remember that your friends probably don't know your ability better than you know your own ability. So if you've got friends that are pressuring you to go somewhere and saying that you'll be fine, and you trust your friends and they know what your ability level is because you've skied with them a lot, and and you have a friend who is willing to stick with you and go at your pace down the hill, then I would say that you're in a much better situation to be able to give it a try. But you got to know your friends pretty well, and you got to be able to trust your friends pretty well too. So more than anything, just step into your own power and speak up for yourself, and know that your gut and your instinct is really powerful. One of the things that happened, just on that note real quick, if you guys haven't read the article in the New York Times about the Tunnel Creek avalanche up in Stevens Pass, several years back, we had a couple of our friends that were killed in that avalanche. And looking back on it, some of my friends that were there that weren't killed said there was a lot of people that were second guessing the decisions being made that day that didn't speak up. So you get into that mode of groupthink of, oh, everybody else seems to think it's okay, so I don't want to step out of myself and say anything. And it's something to really, really pay attention to, because that day could have been avoided if some people had spoken up. So don't ever hesitate to speak up.
Do you have any suggestions for float packs for women?
For float packs, you mean Abby packs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any suggestions in terms of which ones to have. I would say that, they're getting a lot more popular for people who are going out into the uncontrolled backcountry. They're not cheap, but it's like an insurance policy. But you also got to be able to be in a situation that you can deploy it when you need to. Nothing is as safe as making good decisions. So don't buy something like that and suddenly think that you're going to be safe no matter what. It's more important to be able to know what the weather is like, know what the conditions are like, and make good decisions about where you're going and the conditions that you're going to be getting yourself into. Float packs can be great and they can be life-saving, but the reality is you don't ever want to use one.
What are your thoughts on skiing alone?
My thoughts on skiing alone. My husband will attest to the fact that I think if you're skiing on a groomer and you're around where there's a lot of people, you're good to go. I would never, ever go ski in the trees by yourself, especially after a big heavy snowfall. I'm not a fan of it. He knows when we go ski the trees, if I can't see him, it makes me super nervous, and I'm a pretty good skier and I've been skiing a long time and I can ski in the trees, but things can go wrong in a hurry, especially in the trees. And I think it's kind of like anything, if you're going somewhere and you're skiing by yourself, if you're skiing where there's a lot of people around and there's safety in numbers, then I feel like that's fine. But if you're just like anything, if you're going mountain biking or you're going swimming or anything like that, you make sure you tell people. You go hiking, you tell people where you're going, what trail you're going to be on. You check in when you get back. But if you're going to a resort area and you're going to ski on the groomers and be around a lot of people, I think that's way less risky. I think that you're taking big risks if you're going in the backcountry by yourself. I know a lot of people who do it and they're very, very proficient and they take those calculated risks and they feel comfortable with it. But you better be very, very, very proficient and know that still things can go wrong.
So
I hope I don't sound like a Debbie Downer.
No, I think that stuff is really important. These two questions kind of go together. What's your favorite boot, mostly for the backcountry? And then do you also have the right boot or the bindings for an AT set?
So now we're going into an area that I would say I'm less of an expert on, is AT. There is a lot of good, I don't have a favorite AT boot. And to be quite honest with all of you out there, I don't do a lot of AT. I can say to you, I've never done AT skiing other than just boot packing in the backcountry. Mostly because I have been caught in a couple avalanches in my lifetime and have been buried and when I was younger. And so I get nervous in the backcountry. I get little panic attacks. So as much as my husband wants to get me out there and I want to do it, I haven't quite ventured out there. And so I'm probably not the best person to give advice on favorite in terms of AT gear or advice on that. But I will say that in terms of manufacturers, I think that they've all got things pretty well dialed by now, and it's going to come down to what's comfortable for you and how well you can walk in it and move in it, and making sure that it's fitting your foot and the shape of your foot, and so that your heel, especially if you're going uphill, your heel isn't sliding in that boot and giving you blisters and causing problems, because it's a different fit and it's a different sensation than just a regular Alpine boot. So I would go back to some of the things I talked about boots in terms of just getting a well-fitting boot, and that would be where I'd say defer to your shop guys and the people who go out in the backcountry a lot. But I don't think that you could say like Dynafit is better than Arc'teryx or whoever else is making these. I think that they all make pretty good gear these days. And then you said, sorry, Steph, what was the second half of that question?
What was the
boot binding gear?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would defer to my to my answer on the other one. I know that there's some really cool technology out there right now that's coming out with the new AT bindings, and the ability for them to, I think Solomon has the switch binding now that you can make into an Alpine and an AT binding. I mean, there's a lot of really cool things that are coming out right now, but sadly, I don't think that I'm going to give you the information you want to know on that question, because it's definitely not my area.
Well, Claire might be able to chime in a little bit on that, if you don't mind.
Sure, not at all. Go for it, Claire.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can.
I thought my microphone wasn't working. Yeah, hi folks. Great job. This has been really awesome. I actually feel like there's a great little heads up to give everyone here that's interested in kind of asking these backcountry questions. So on more of the risk management, decision making side, as you know, we've got a couple of great events coming up. We partnered up with Arc'teryx to create an Alpine development school. Funny enough, this slide that you're looking at, this beautiful picture, is from our Alpine finishing school, which is this really cool ski and splitboard mountaineering course for women that we've run for the last 8 years in British Columbia. Anyway, brings me right back. Wish we were going back there this winter, but it won't be happening. Anyway, so if you're interested in checking out those courses, please, really, you don't have to have any backcountry experience to get something out of it. It's really about just, you know, understanding that there are a lot of layers, as we're learning tonight, to all of this information and all of the sports, and nobody is born knowing how to do any of this stuff. And it's all little tricks and tips that come along the way when it comes from, you know, what order do you buckle your boots in? Everybody has kind of an answer of like, what order do you use, Betsy?
The order that I buckle my boots in. Can you still hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I put my foot in a boot, this is the buckle that I always do first. I always buckle this buckle first. And when I put my foot in a boot, I always take my leg and I bring it straight up and down. I never buckle my boot with my leg forward, because I want to make sure that I get a nice snug. So I buckle this buckle first to hold my foot back and my heel back in the heel cup. And then I buckle these up, and then this is the last little one that I do. And really, I look at this buckle as just something to keep the water out of my boot. It's really, and the big thing about that too is just not having to overbuckle. You don't want to have to like buckle all the way to your last little rung. It should be somewhere in the middle.
I'm so glad we got you to share that little trick, because I feel like I watch people put like all the buckles just like they go right down from the top, and I'm thinking that's not going to be comfortable for you. It's not going to be fitting you right. And so with that those backcountry questions, so I've been backcountry skiing for over 15, almost 20 years. I love it, but I will say that I have suffered many a day with ill-fitting equipment, just all sorts of issues, right? Your skins don't fit right. You know, all of those things are skills that SheJumps actually provides quite a few webinars and stuff on. So you've all given me this wonderful idea that we need to be doing something really specific, maybe for some of this backcountry equipment, because it is such a huge investment to go into. So it's like, if you're going to buy it, you want to make sure it's going to be something that's really going to work for you. But I was just checking out some of the new buyer's guides, and I tell you what, exactly like Betsy said, find a boot company that fits your foot, and like they make a backcountry boot. If you're really, I mean, that could be one way that you almost approach it. And then also depending on what kind of a setup that you want. So these days they have all of these different kinds of bindings, like you have your Dynafit binding, that's a tech binding that needs a special kind of boot. But there are also other bindings that can be like the shift binding that you can be kind of skiing both inbounds and then also used for backcountry. So there are seriously so many options out there. Not enough time tonight to go into all of them. But I think if people do have some of those questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we can start to put together a webinar, a class similar to that, so that we can start to really get to the bottom of all of that in terms of kind of what are some, with the gear side of things. But with the kind of experience side of things, please check out our Alpine Development School. It's November 17th, 18th, 19th. They're just an hour long each night. They'll be recorded. So if you can't make it, it's $15, and it's led by one of the first ever. She's going to be the first female ACMG, which is the Canadian Mountain Guide Association, female split board guide, which is really cool. So she's gone through all of her training. That's Christine Faliki. So yeah, I'd really highly recommend it. And this has been really wonderful. I'm sure there's probably more questions. I saw so many more pop up. Durbin, where are we at with some questions on there?
Clara, I might have to take some of those programs too, so that I can go backcountry with my husband. Build my confidence for that.
Yeah, and you know, and
I think
it aligns with that too. I was just gonna say, like, it's one of those things where, you know, we really want to give women, especially, that ability to not, as you said, like kind of fall into those traps where you let other people make decisions. So that if there is a reason why you have that spidey sense inside of you, you don't go, oh, but this person knows more than me, so I should just shut up and just go along and follow them, and give people the vocabulary and the skill set. So even though, again, some of that stuff's backcountry focused, it might even help for in the ski area when you're going, well, you're right, I think I have the skills to do this, or hey, something's saying maybe I shouldn't. So let's see you in there, Betsy. Can't wait.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
I think we've gotten all of our questions answered, unless anybody else has any more questions. But I know that we also have a snow science program that's coming up here in the next couple weeks. And then we've got some Know Before You Go courses coming up as well. So I think this is all really good stuff. And I really want to thank Betsy for taking the time to educating us on just some of these basic things that we all should be taking a look at. And I've been skiing for a very long time, and I have a few takeaways. So thank you so much, Betsy, for your time. And thank you for everybody joining us. And Claire.
My pleasure. And, you know, my information will probably also be given in, or I'll make sure it's given in the follow-up email that's going to go out to participants. And so if anybody has any future questions, they can always shoot me an email or give me a call or whatever as well. And, you know, whether they're physical therapy related or skiing related, or hopefully I'll get to see some of you guys on the Hill of Crystal this year. So
we love that. And folks, you can go to the link in the chat there. We're going to send out all of Betsy's information. We're going to send out the recording. We're going to send out all the links that she mentioned. So again, thank you all so much for tuning in and supporting SheJumps. This has been really wonderful.
Yay. Let's look forward to a good winter out there.
Yay.
Thanks for joining, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.